I have called all my 3 children down for dinner, but I keep counting 4. Nandini, Pihu, Vinayak, get down for dinner. I yelled from the kitchen as I fried puris in the wok. Beads of sweat were rolling down my face from the heat. Seriously? Cooking for 3 kids and a husband every day is an arduous task. But a norm in an average married woman's life. To give you all some context on my life, I live in a 2-story house paid for by my in-laws in Varanasi or Banaras, as some people call it. Furthermore, I work as a government employee. I would not disclose my profession as it is discouraged by government rules of service. Basically, I am your run-of-the-mill working wife who lives in a nuclear setting with her kids and her husband. My life is as drab as it can be. Seriously, you 3, get down already before I send your father your way. I threatened the kids. Their father was a disciplinarian who was not afraid to smack the kids across the face if the need arises. So using his name to get the kids to behave was an old tactic, and an effective one, at that. I relaxed as soon as I heard the pitter-patter of the feet and the loud voices of my children coming down to the kitchen. Each one of their plates was by now on the kitchen slab, a meal consisting of puris and a potato curry, and the cleaning up of the kitchen counter had begun as each one of them picked up their plate and got down to eating. My husband eats at different times from my kids, so I wrap up his food with aluminum foil to be eaten at a time convenient for him. Happy to be free from today's tasks, I started making conversation with the kids as I did my routine tasks of cleaning up. What were you all doing upstairs? We were playing with the Ouija board, Mommy. Monty has lent it to us for the week. He hasn't even opened up the game from the package and just handed it over to us. I bet he was afraid of what would happen if he played it. That scaredy chicken, Pihu answered while laughing at the neighbor's kid. Why would he be afraid? I queried, not being familiar with the latest games the kids were up to these days. Honestly, my 3 beloved but undisciplined munchkins preferred to spend most of their time on mobile phones or the iPad that their New York-based uncle had brought from them. Their uncle had worked pretty hard to set up his medical practice in New York. I wish that my kids would also lose their lazy habits and study voraciously to settle down somewhere nice with a steady flow of income. But nowadays, they much prefer their electronics and entertainment over picking up a book that can actually help them in their studies. It is a game that is used to summon ghosts or communicate with them, replied one of my kids while grabbing his plate. Huh? You all need to stop doing such idiotic acts and focus on your studies. Seriously? Summoning ghosts? I genuinely hope you all didn't accidentally practice any witchcraft or dark magic. When your Aunt Sonali was 25, somebody had surreptitiously cut a piece of her hair when she was at her friend's place. Her mother immediately realized that black magic had been committed upon her as soon as she witnessed the chopped strands of hair, and lo and behold, her husband left her for his colleague just 3 days later. I chided my kids. In India, cutting a piece of your hair or feeding someone food items influenced by black magic was one of the most common ways to practice the dark arts. We won't do it again, Mommy, Nandini apologized. She was, after all, the most obedient of my kids. The other 3 just mocked me for being a chicken like Monty. Hey, let's play badminton after dinner, Vinayak suggested as the kids filtered out from the kitchen after grabbing their plates. I sighed and started washing the wok in the water. Enjoying a few relaxed and quiet moments was so impossible these days. Mommy, you didn't set a plate for me, Pihu suddenly whined from behind me. I turned around, surprised and ready to chide her as I literally set out 3 plates every day for breakfast, lunch and dinner, and I very clearly remember preparing 3 plates. But as I analyzed the scene before me, there were no plates left on the kitchen slab. One of your siblings must have taken it, I soothed her as we both went to the dining table to see which one of her siblings had taken her food, expecting to see them laughing mischievously amongst themselves over their stolen rations. But as I entered the dining room, it was surprising that my kids had begun to eat already. Every time they play a prank on one another, you can count on them to laugh like hyenas upon being caught, and yet, here they were, all 3 of them munching happily upon their dinner and entertaining themselves with their gadgets simultaneously like they typically do. Nandini was watching some Netflix show on the iPad. Vinayak was playing some car racing game on his mobile, and my 3rd kid was reading the latest edition of the Champak magazine. I counted the plates 1, 2 and 3. Huh? I counted again 1, 2 and 3. My head started spinning a little. On my left, Pihu was clutching my hand and pouting. I let my eyes roam over the kids again. 3 of them were wolfing down their dinner and one of them was clutching my hand. That means that I am counting 4 kids, but that is impossible, as I had 3 kids only. I counted again and again for 5 minutes, but there were 4 kids in the room. Frustrated, I turned to Pihu and questioned her as to how many people are in the room currently. She made a face at me but told me in an annoyed voice that there were 5 people in the room. Can you name them all? Me? You? Nandini and Vinayak, Pihu replied while crossing her arms. That is just 4 people. Who is the 5th person? I questioned her, now feeling like an icy cold hand had gripped my heart. An expression of surprise passed over her face as she whipped around to count the people in the room again. There are 5 people in the room, mommy, Pihu replied very softly, the beginning of tears on her face that was about to turn into a full-on ball. She had clearly realized what was wrong with the situation. Now Vinayak had looked up from his dinner and was looking at us with concern. What happened, mommy? Why is Pihu crying? I stuttered at the question, not knowing how to explain what was happening without alerting whatever was in the room with us. Now Nandini had looked up from her dinner too. Nervously, I questioned Vinayak and Nandini about how many people were in the room with us too. Both of them had a look of surprise upon their faces upon a seemingly absurd question, but all 3 of them replied that there were 5 people in the room with us. Now I was terrified. It felt like my body was frozen in fear and wouldn't move. This paranormal occurrence was shooting my heart rate to a high level, forcing my mouth to work. I immediately ordered Nandini to bring down her father from his study room. I will go instead of Nandini, mommy. I am done eating anyways. One of my kids replied as he put down his Champak magazine. Before I could reply to that, he scurried away. Now there were only 3 other people in the room. 3 other people. I nervously counted again, Pihu, Vinayak and Nandini. If all 3 of my kids were in the room, then who went to bring down their father? I immediately ran towards the study room. A surge of relief passed through me to see my husband was sitting on his moving chair, with his back turned to me. As I approached him and hurriedly turned the chair around to disclose the emergency situation, a scream escaped my mouth at the sight, because both of his eyes were gouged out and he was bleeding from the place where his eyes had once been. His right arm had been ripped off too from its hinges and his mouth was open in a wordless scream. I stumbled back only to fall upon the ground, but as soon as I moved my arm on the ground to get up and run towards my kids, something warm and liquid touched my fingers. I looked down at my hand and saw that it was blood, a lot of blood, flowing from the almirah right behind me. Swallowing down a painful cry, I very slowly got up and clutched the knob to slowly open the almirah, too afraid and numb to find what was behind it. As soon as I opened it, immediately I had to shoot down the bile that had risen in my throat. As I put a hand over my mouth, because on top of the bloodied clothes, there was neatly placed the severed head of Monty. Now I knew that I had to grab my kids and get the hell out of here immediately. I ran downstairs and was so glad to see my 3 kids. My body on its own hugged all of them with tears flowing down freely from my eyes. Through a loud and cracked voice, I told them all to get in the car. But Vinayak, looking a little terrified, asked me what happened to his father. Not being able to answer that, I asked him to just take all his siblings and move in the car. But mommy, Nandini, is in the bathroom, Vinayak told me cautiously. Now my blood had really run cold. I counted all the kids in the room again, 1, 2 and 3, but I could see that only Vinayak and Pihu were in the room with me. Tearing up, I ran towards the bathroom, hoping to save Nandini in time from whatever thing had entered my home. But as soon as I saw blood seeping from below the bathroom door, I knew it was too late. An extreme feeling of defeat came over me. My legs, almost automatically, moved towards my remaining kids. While my mind was wondering if any one of us will be making it out alive today, I reached the dining room where the rest of my kids were. Pihu, Vinayak, please run to the car. Save yourselves. I was about to scream this to my kids, but as soon as my kids came into view, I stopped. In front of me, Pihu was calmly finishing Vinayak's half-eaten dinner. One of my kids was sitting opposite Pihu, finishing Nandini's half-eaten dinner. And about what happened to Vinayak, his severed head laid in the middle of the table, with his eyes missing from his sockets. A spell of silence fell over as I watched the scene in front of me. Both of my kids calmly ate their dinner while I watched in numb silence. After finishing the food, Pihu calmly turned towards me and said, "Mommy, did you like what your new son did to Papa, Vinayak and Nandini, and what I did to that annoying bastard Monty? If yes, then I am sure you will love what he is about to do to you." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw my other kid cleaning up a bloodied sickle with a napkin. Guys,